The space around Epsilon Sector was quiet and dark. Stars dotted the black canvas like tiny diamonds. In this emptiness, a human warship moved slowly through the void. The ship was called the UNS Dauntless, and it was on a routine patrol mission far from Earth. Captain Day sat in his command chair on the bridge. He was a calm man with sharp eyes and graying hair at his temples. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. The soft beeping of computers and the hum of engines were the only sounds. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed peaceful. "Captain, I'm picking up something on sensors," said Lieutenant High from the tactical station. She was young but very skilled at her job. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "What do you have?" Dai asked, leaning forward slightly. "Unknown vessel, sir. Large military class. It's about 50,000 kilometers away and closing." High looked up at him with concern in her eyes. Day nodded slowly. This was what they had been preparing for. Humanity had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. They knew there must be other intelligent species out there. Today they were finally meeting one. "All hands, this is the captain." Day spoke into the ship-wide communication system. "We have contact with an unknown alien vessel. Stay calm and stay sharp. This is what we trained for." The unknown ship was massive. It was 3 times the size of the Dauntless, with a dark purple hull that gleamed under the distant starlight. Strange symbols covered its surface. Weapons ports lined its sides like the teeth of a predator. This was the Sovereign Talon, the pride of the Velcrin Confederation. On its bridge, Commander Vekral studied the human ship with interest. He was tall and reptilian, with scales that shimmered green and gold. His yellow eyes were cold and calculating. "Scan that vessel," Vekral ordered. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about it." His science officer Thelnir activated the scanning systems. Powerful beams of energy swept across the Dauntless, penetrating its hull, analyzing its weapons, measuring its power output. The scan was designed to reveal every secret the ship held. On the human bridge, alarms started beeping. "Captain, they're scanning us," High reported. "Deep-level scan. They're looking at everything." "Let them look," Day said calmly. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. "I'm curious what they'll think." Back on the Velcrin ship, Thelnir's face went pale. His hands trembled as he read the data streaming across his screen. "Commander, these readings, they can't be right." "What is it?" Vekral demanded. "Their power output is... it's enormous. Their weapon systems are reading at levels I've never seen. And their hull composition... these materials shouldn't be possible." Thelnir's voice shook with disbelief. Vekral frowned. The Velcrin had been the dominant power in this sector for 3,000 years. No one challenged them. No one could match their technology. These readings had to be wrong. "Run the scan again," he ordered. "There must be a malfunction." Thelnir ran the scan a second time. The results were identical. In fact, they were slightly worse. The more the scanners analyzed the human ship, the more impossible it seemed. Commander Vekral stared at the data for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. He decided the readings were errors. He decided that this small, unknown ship from an unknown species could not possibly be a threat. He decided to assert Velcrin dominance as he always did. "Open a channel," Vekral commanded. On the Dauntless, a scratchy voice came through the speakers. The ship's computer worked quickly to translate the alien language. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Vekral of the Velcrin Confederation. You have entered our territory without permission. Identify yourself immediately." Captain Day stood up from his chair. He straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Day of the United Nations Starship Dauntless, representing the people of Earth. We mean you no harm. We are explorers and travelers. We seek peaceful contact with other intelligent species." There was a pause. Then Vekral's voice came back harder this time. "Earth, we have no record of your species. Your ship will submit to inspection. You will lower your weapons and allow us to board. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction." First Officer Wu, standing next to Day's chair, whispered, "Captain, he's threatening us." "I know," Day replied quietly. Then he spoke louder into the communication system. "Commander Vekral, we respectfully decline your demand. We have done nothing wrong. We will continue on our course. I suggest we arrange a proper diplomatic meeting instead." On the Velcrin bridge, Vekral's scales flushed darker with anger. How dare this unknown species refuse him? The Velcrin Confederation was supreme. All species in this sector obeyed without question. "Commander," Thelnir said nervously, "perhaps we should reconsider. These scan readings, the readings are wrong." Vecrel snapped. "Look at that ship. It's small. It's alone. They're trying to appear strong, but they're bluffing." He turned to his weapons officer. "Charge all weapons. If they don't surrender in the next 30 seconds, we will show them the price of defying the Velcrin." Captain Day watched his tactical display. He could see energy building up in the alien ship. They were preparing to fire. He had hoped this first contact would be peaceful. Humanity had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries, but dreams and reality were often different things. "Sir, they're charging weapons," High reported. "Multiple systems coming online. They're preparing for combat." Day took a deep breath. He had given the aliens a chance. He had offered peace and friendship. They had chosen violence instead. Now he had to protect his crew and his ship. More importantly, he had to send a message that would echo across this entire sector of space. "Lieutenant High, go to yellow alert," Day ordered. "But do not raise shields. Do not charge weapons. Not yet." Wu looked at him in surprise. "Captain?" "I want them to fire first," Day explained. "I want their first shot to hit us with everything they have. Only then will they understand what they're dealing with." The seconds ticked by. On the Velcrin ship, Vecrel waited for the human response. When none came, he smiled. They were paralyzed with fear. Good. He would destroy this ship and file a report about eliminating an unknown threat. The Confederation would probably give him a medal. "Fire," Vecrel commanded. The Sovereign Talon unleashed its weapons. Bright plasma torpedoes shot through space, trailing fire. They crossed the distance between the two ships in seconds, locked onto the Dauntless with perfect accuracy. Every member of the human crew watched their screens. The torpedoes were coming straight at them. Any normal ship would try to dodge. Any normal ship would raise shields. Any normal ship would be destroyed. But the Dauntless was not a normal ship, and humanity was not a normal species. The torpedoes struck the hull with tremendous force. Massive explosions bloomed across the Dauntless's surface, bright enough to light up the surrounding space. The Velcrin crew watched their displays, expecting to see debris and destruction. Instead, when the fire cleared, the Dauntless sat completely unchanged. Not a single scratch marked its hull. Not even a scorch mark. The ship hadn't moved. It hadn't flinched. It had simply absorbed the attack as if nothing had happened. On the human bridge, Lieutenant Tay at the engineering station looked at his readouts and chuckled. "Hull integrity at 100%, Captain. Shields remain inactive. That barely registered on our sensors." Captain Day's expression turned cold. His eyes hardened. The time for warnings was over. "Now," he said quietly, "they pay the price." Silence filled the bridge of the Sovereign Talon. Every Velcrin officer stared at their screens in disbelief. Commander Vecrel felt his blood run cold. Those plasma torpedoes could melt through standard military armor in seconds. They should have torn that human ship apart. "Impossible," Vecrel whispered. "Thelnir, what happened? Did the torpedoes malfunction?" The science officer checked his readings 3 times before answering. His voice trembled. "No, Commander. The torpedoes functioned perfectly. They struck the target with full force. The human ship, it just absorbed the impact. Their shields never even activated. That was just their bare hull." Fear crept into Vecrel's mind, but pride pushed it away. He was a commander of the Velcrin Confederation. He would not be intimidated by one strange ship. Perhaps that first attack had been lucky. Perhaps the humans had some kind of special armor plating. But armor could be overwhelmed. "All weapons," Vecrel commanded loudly, trying to sound confident. "Fire everything. Continuous barrage. I want that ship destroyed now." The Sovereign Talon came alive with deadly light. Energy beams lanced out. Kinetic rounds shot through space. Electromagnetic pulses crackled across the void. Antimatter missiles streaked toward their target. The Velcrin unleashed every weapon system they had, pouring destruction onto the human ship. The space around the Dauntless turned into a storm of fire and energy. Explosions rippled across its hull continuously. The bombardment was so intense that the human ship almost disappeared behind the wall of destruction. Any normal vessel would have been vaporized in seconds, but the Dauntless was not a normal vessel. On the human bridge, the crew remained calm. They had trained for this. They knew what their ship could do. Lieutenant Hai watched her tactical display with a slight smile. Lieutenant Tay monitored the engineering systems, looking almost bored. Captain, the aliens are using everything they have, Hai reported. Energy weapons, kinetics, missiles, electromagnetic attacks. Full assault. Hull status. Day asked calmly. Tay checked his console. Hull integrity holding at 100%, sir. Outer armor is absorbing everything. Temperature increase is negligible. We could sit here all day. Captain Day nodded. He understood what needed to happen now. The Velcrin had made their choice. They had chosen violence over peace. They had attacked without provocation. Now they needed to learn a lesson. Not just for their sake, but for every species in this sector that might think about doing the same thing. Humanity had reached the stars hoping for friends. But they had prepared for enemies. Earth was a harsh world, a planet where survival required strength. Humans had evolved in a crucible of competition and danger. Their technology reflected that heritage. Their ships were built to last. Their weapons were built to end fights quickly. The Velcrin bombardment continued for 2 full minutes. It was the longest sustained assault the Sovereign Talon had ever unleashed. Finally, the weapons began to cycle down. The ship's capacitors were drained. Its ammunition was depleted. The crew needed time to recharge. As the last explosion faded, the Velcrin crew held their breath and watched their sensors. Slowly, the image cleared. The Dauntless emerged from the fire, floating peacefully in the void. Its hull was pristine, perfect, untouched. It looked exactly as it had before the attack began. No damage, Thelnir reported, his voice barely a whisper. No damage at all. Commander, what are they? Veckrel didn't answer. He couldn't. His entire understanding of warfare had just been shattered. The Velcrin had been the strongest power in this region for 3,000 years. They had never met an equal, let alone a superior, until now. On the Dauntless, Captain Day stood up from his chair. He walked to the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the image of the Velcrin ship on the main screen. When he spoke, his voice was cold and clear. It was transmitted across all frequencies, ensuring the aliens would hear every word. Commander Veckrel, you were warned. You were offered peace. You were given a chance to talk, to understand, to make friends. You chose violence instead. Now you need to understand what you've awakened. Day turned to Lieutenant Hai. Tactical response. Minimal force. Disable their ship, but do not destroy it. No casualties if possible. Yes, sir, Hai responded. Her fingers danced across her console, inputting targeting solutions. The Dauntless's weapon systems came online smoothly, efficiently. Railgun ready! Target locked on their primary shield generator. Fire, Day ordered. The Dauntless fired a single railgun round. It wasn't a missile with explosives. It wasn't an energy beam. It was just a solid piece of tungsten metal, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed by magnetic rails. Simple physics. Simple, devastating physics. The round crossed the distance between ships in microseconds. The Velcrin sensors barely registered it before impact. The tungsten slug punched through the Sovereign Talon's shield generator like paper. Metal screamed. Systems exploded. Sparks flew across the Velcrin bridge. Shield generator destroyed. Thelnir shouted over the alarms. Primary shields are down. Before Veckrel could respond, the Dauntless fired again. The second round struck the main weapons array with surgical precision. The entire weapon system went dark. A third shot followed immediately, slamming into the engine core. The Sovereign Talon shuddered violently. The lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. 3 shots, 3 seconds, 3 critical systems completely destroyed. The Velcrin crew sat in shocked silence. Their mighty battlecruiser had been reduced to a drifting hulk. They were defenseless, helpless at the mercy of an enemy they had foolishly attacked. But more terrifying than the destruction was the precision. Each shot had been carefully placed. Deliberate, controlled. The humans were holding back. Even now, after being attacked, they were showing restraint. They could have destroyed the Sovereign Talon completely. They could have killed everyone aboard. Instead, they had simply disabled the ship. They had proven their point without unnecessary death. Veckrel slumped in his command chair. His scales had lost their shine. His proud bearing was gone. He understood now. The scan readings had been correct. These humans possessed technology far beyond anything the Velcrin had. And worse, they possessed the discipline to use that technology with precision and control. Commander, Thelnir said quietly. What do we do? Vekral took a deep breath. Pride had brought him to this moment. Pride had made him dismiss the scan data. Pride had made him attack instead of talking. But pride would not save his crew now. Only honesty would. Open a channel to the human ship, Vekral said, his voice heavy with defeat. When the channel opened, Captain Day's face appeared on the screen. He looked stern but not cruel. His eyes held no joy in victory, only grim satisfaction that the lesson had been taught. Captain Day, Vekral began, forcing the words out. We surrender, unconditionally. We were wrong to attack. We were wrong to threaten. We ask for mercy. Day studied the alien commander for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Your surrender is accepted, Commander. We will not fire again. You may repair your systems and return to your people, but you will carry a message for us. What message? Vekral asked. Tell your leaders. Tell your people. Humanity seeks peace. We want to explore, to learn, to make friends among the stars. But we are not weak. We are not helpless. We give everyone a chance always. But never ever mistake our mercy for weakness. Day paused, letting his words sink in. You attacked us without cause. We defended ourselves without cruelty. Remember this day, Commander. Remember what happened when you scanned a human warship and chose violence. Vekral nodded slowly. I will remember, Captain. We all will. The communication channel closed. On the Dauntless Bridge, First Officer Wu approached Captain Day. Sir, should we offer assistance with their repairs? Day considered for a moment, then shook his head. No. Let them fix their own ship. They need time to think about what happened here. But we'll stay in the area until they're mobile again, just in case someone else decides to take advantage of their weakness. That's generous, considering they tried to destroy us, Wu observed. We're not here for revenge, Day replied. We're here to show them who humanity is. When we reach the stars, we reach with open hands, but those hands can become fists if necessary. He returned to his command chair and sat down. Resume patrol course. Let's give our new friends some space. As the Dauntless moved away, maintaining a respectful distance, the crew began to relax. They had survived first contact. More importantly, they had handled it well. They had been strong without being cruel. They had been merciful without being weak. The galaxy was about to learn a new truth. Humanity had arrived, and they would not be pushed around. The news spread fast. Within hours of the encounter, Commander Vekral's report reached Velkrin High Command. Within a day, every major power in the sector knew about the humans. Within a week, the galaxy was talking about nothing else. At Velkrin High Command headquarters, a massive space station orbiting their homeworld, the Council of Admirals gathered in emergency session. The council chamber was a circular room with seats rising in tiers. Holographic displays floated in the center, showing the battle footage from the Sovereign Talon sensors. Admiral Korvan, the supreme military commander of the Velkrin Confederation, watched the footage for the 5th time. He was old. His scales faded to a dull gray, but his mind remained sharp. Around him, other admirals argued loudly. This must be fake, Admiral Dren shouted. He was young and aggressive, like Vekral had been. No species could have technology this advanced. The humans must have used some kind of trick. What kind of trick destroys a shield generator from 50 kilometers away with a single shot? Admiral Korvan asked quietly. His soft voice cut through the noise. The chamber fell silent. What kind of trick allows a ship to withstand 2 minutes of continuous bombardment without damage? Another admiral, an older female named Rilvan, spoke up. We should assemble a fleet. 100 ships. 200. Surely their technology has limits. We should strike before they can spread. And if their other ships are as strong as this one? Korvan asked. What then? Do we sacrifice hundreds of ships and thousands of lives to learn that lesson? He shook his head. No, we need more information. Bring in the scientists. Dr. Rin entered the chamber a few minutes later. She was the Confederation's top xenotechnology specialist. A thin Velkrin with bright blue scales and intelligent eyes. She carried a data tablet and moved with nervous energy. What can you tell us about these humans? Korvan asked her. Dr. Rin activated a holographic display. It showed the scan data from the Sovereign Talon, along with her analysis. Admirals, the humans are remarkable. Their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours, maybe more. Their weapons use principles we're still studying in laboratories. Their armor is composed of materials we've never seen. But what about their biology? Korvan pressed. What kind of species are they? Dr. Rin pulled up another display. It showed a human body with notes and measurements floating around it. This is where it gets interesting. The humans evolved on what we would classify as a death world. Extremely harsh conditions, high gravity, aggressive microorganisms, dangerous predators, extreme weather patterns. The admirals leaned forward, interested now. Their bodies reflect this evolution, Dr. Rin continued. They have redundant organs. Their bones are incredibly dense. Their healing capability is remarkable. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. And their endurance. Admirals, a human can run for hours without stopping. They can go days without food. They're built to survive, Admiral Dren scoffed. So they're tough. That doesn't explain their technology. Actually, it does, Dr. Rin replied. Think about it. A species that must constantly fight to survive will develop technology faster. They have to. Every generation faces new challenges. Every generation must adapt or die. For humans, innovation isn't a luxury, it's survival. The chamber went quiet as the admirals absorbed this information. They were beginning to understand. The humans weren't just technologically advanced. They were evolutionarily designed for conflict. They were, in every sense, natural warriors who had learned to build machines as deadly as themselves. What do you recommend? Korvan asked Dr. Rin. Diplomacy, she said immediately. These humans showed remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed the sovereign Talon. They chose not to. That suggests they can be reasoned with. We should open negotiations immediately. Far across the sector, in the territory of the Xylan Collective, a different conversation was taking place. The Xylan were not warriors like the Velkrin. They were traders, diplomats, and information brokers. Their power came from knowing things others didn't. Empress Sultara sat in her private chambers, reading the intercepted Velkrin communications. She was slender and graceful, with skin that shimmered like pearl and eyes that saw opportunities where others saw problems. Fascinating, she murmured to herself. Then she pressed a button on her desk. Send for Ambassador Rennis. Rennis arrived quickly. She was Sultara's best diplomat, known for her ability to make friends with anyone. She bowed respectfully to the Empress. You've heard about the humans? Sultara asked. Yes, Empress. Everyone has heard. The Velkrin are terrified, Sultara smiled. Exactly. And when one power is afraid, that creates opportunity for another. The Velkrin have dominated this sector through military strength. If the humans are stronger, the balance of power shifts. You want to ally with the humans? Rennis asked, understanding immediately. I want to be their friend before the Velkrin can be their enemy. Sultara corrected. Find them. Make contact. Offer assistance, information, friendship. And in return, we gain access to their technology and their protection. Meanwhile, on the Dauntless, Captain Day was dealing with his own challenges. His ship's sensors showed multiple vessels tracking them from a distance. Some were Velkrin, keeping watch. Others were unknown species, probably curious about the newcomers. We're being followed, First Officer Wu observed, looking at the tactical display. Let them look, Day replied. He was writing a report for Earth Command, trying to explain what had happened. As long as they keep their distance, they're not a threat. Lieutenant Hai turned from her station.
Captain, we're receiving a transmission.
It's on a quantum channel. Very sophisticated encryption. Who is it? Day asked. They identify themselves as the Xylan Collective. They're requesting a meeting. Says it's urgent and peaceful. Day exchanged glances with Wu. What do you think? Could be a trap, Wu said carefully. But they're not using military channels. And they came to us instead of demanding we come to them. Day thought for a moment. The Velkrin had approached with arrogance and threats. These Xylan were being polite and respectful. That was a good sign. Send a response. Tell them we'll meet, but on our terms. Neutral territory. We choose the location. And we bring weapons. Sensible. Wu agreed. The response came back quickly. The Xylan agreed to all conditions. They even sent a small data package, a gift of information about the local sector. Maps, trade routes, political boundaries. It was a peace offering, a sign of good faith. They're trying hard, Hai observed. Which means they want something, Day said. But at least they're trying. That's better than shooting first, he stood up. Set a meeting location. Somewhere with no cover, no places to hide ships, an open asteroid field. If they're genuine, they'll come alone. If they're planning an ambush, we'll see it coming. As the Dauntless made its way to the meeting location, Captain Day contacted Earth Command. The transmission would take hours to reach Earth and hours more for a response to come back. But he needed to inform his superiors about everything that was happening. Admiral Na's face appeared on his screen. She was an older woman with short gray hair and a sharp mind. She had commanded ships before becoming an admiral, and she understood the challenges of first contact. "Captain Day," she said when she received his message hours later, "your report is disturbing and encouraging in equal measure. Disturbing because we now know there are hostile species out here. Encouraging because you handled the situation perfectly." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "The United Nations Security Council has been meeting constantly since your first report. We're forming a new policy for alien contact, but for now you have full authority to act as you see fit. Make friends if you can. Defend yourself if you must. But remember, Captain, you're not just representing your ship or your crew. You're representing all of humanity." "I understand, Admiral," Day recorded in his response. "I know you do," Na continued.
That's why you're out there.
"Be careful with these Xylan. If they're as smart as they seem, they'll want to use us for their own purposes. That's fine, as long as we're using them too. Just make sure we get a fair deal." Back in Velkran space, Admiral Korvan made his decision. He overruled the aggressive admirals who wanted war. He ordered the fleet to stand down, and he composed a message to be sent to the human ship. The message was simple and direct. The Velkran Confederation apologized for the hostile actions of Commander Vekrel. They requested formal diplomatic contact. They offered to share information about the galaxy in exchange for peace. It was a humiliating message for a proud species to send. But Admiral Korvan was wise enough to know that pride was worthless if it got you killed. When Captain Day received the Velkran message, he smiled slightly. It was a good start. Not perfect, but good. He composed a reply, accepting the apology and agreeing to future talks. Lieutenant Commander Su, the ship's diplomatic officer, read his reply and nodded approval. "Well done, Captain. You're forcing them to treat us as equals." "Not equals," Day corrected gently. "Superiors. At least militarily. They need to understand that, not because we want to dominate them, but because we need to prevent future attacks." He sighed. "I wish we could have met them peacefully. But this is the hand we've been dealt. We work with what we have," Su agreed. The asteroid field was perfect for a meeting. Thousands of rocks floated in the darkness, but they were small and spread out. Nothing large enough to hide a warship. Nothing to create an ambush. Captain Day had chosen well. The Dauntless waited at the center of the field, its sensors sweeping constantly for threats. On the bridge, the crew was tense but ready. This would be humanity's first peaceful contact with an alien species. Everyone hoped it would go better than the meeting with the Velkran. "Contact," Lieutenant High announced. "One ship dropping out of FTL. Small vessel, courier class. No weapon signatures," Captain Day nodded. "Good, they came as promised. Hail them." A moment later, a face appeared on the main screen. It was Ambassador Rennes of the Xylan Collective. She looked almost human, which was surprising. Her skin had a slight shimmer to it, and her eyes were a bit too large, but otherwise she could have walked down any street on Earth without causing alarm. "Captain Day," Rennes said, bowing her head slightly, "thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I come in peace and friendship." "Ambassador," Day replied politely, "we appreciate your approach. You've been far more courteous than others we've met." Rennes smiled. "We heard about your encounter with the Velkran. Commander Vekrel has always been aggressive. I'm glad you survived the meeting." "We did more than survive," First Officer Wu muttered quietly, though not quietly enough. Rennes heard him and her smile widened. "Yes, so I understand. The entire sector is talking about it. One human ship disabled a Velkran battlecruiser in seconds. It's quite impressive." "We did what was necessary," Day said carefully. "Nothing more. We prefer peace, Ambassador, but we can defend ourselves." "That's exactly why I wanted to meet with you," Rennes said. "May I come aboard your ship?" It would be easier to talk face to face, Day hesitated. Bringing an unknown alien onto his ship was a risk. But if they wanted to build trust, someone had to take the first step. "Very well. You may dock and come aboard, but only you, Ambassador. No guards, no escorts." "Agreed," Rennes said immediately. 20 minutes later, Ambassador Rennes stood in the Dauntless conference room. She looked around with open curiosity, studying everything. The room was simple and functional, with a long table and chairs. But to alien eyes, even simple things could be revealing. "Your gravity is strong," Rennes observed. stronger than what most species prefer. Lieutenant Commander Sue, who was leading the human delegation, nodded. Earth has high gravity compared to most worlds. We're used to it. That explains a lot, Rennis said thoughtfully. She sat down and the humans sat across from her. Captain Day, I'll be direct. The Xylan Collective would like to offer you an alliance. That's very forward of you, Captain Day said. We've only just met. Why would you want to ally with a species you know nothing about? Because we know enough, Rennis replied. You're powerful. You're disciplined. And most importantly, you showed mercy when you didn't have to. Those are qualities the Xylan value. She leaned forward. Let me tell you about our galaxy, Captain. There are hundreds of spacefaring species. Most are small and weak, struggling to survive. A few are large and powerful. The Velcrin Confederation is one of the most powerful. They've dominated this sector through military force for thousands of years. And the Xylan? Sue asked. We survive through trade and information, Rennis explained. We're not warriors. We're negotiators, merchants, diplomats. We know everyone, we trade with everyone, and we stay neutral in conflicts. But the Velcrin have been pushing us for years. They want more territory, more resources. If we had a strong ally... She let the implication hang in the air. You want us as protection, Day said bluntly. Yes, Rennis admitted, but we offer value in return. We can teach you about the galaxy. We can introduce you to other species. We can help you navigate galactic politics, and we can share technology in areas where we excel. Medical science, communication systems, agricultural techniques. We may not have weapons like yours, but we have other things of value. Before Day could respond, alarms started blaring. Lieutenant High's voice came over the intercom. Captain, to the bridge. We have multiple contacts dropping out of FTL. Day was on his feet immediately, running for the bridge. Sue and Rennis followed close behind. When they reached the bridge, the main screen showed 6 large warships surrounding the asteroid field. They were Velcrin ships, bigger and newer than the Sovereign Talon. Analysis, Day ordered sharply. 6 heavy cruisers, High reported. They're not official Confederation ships, sir. Different markings, private fleet maybe, and they're moving into attack formation. On the communication channel, a harsh voice spoke. Human vessel, this is Vice Admiral Dekvar. You may have fooled Commander Veckrel with your tricks, but you won't fool me. I'm here to eliminate the threat you represent. Surrender now and your death will be quick, Rennis gasped. Dekvar's a hardliner. He's always advocated for aggressive expansion. If he's here, he's gone rogue. The Confederation didn't authorize this. That doesn't help us right now, Wu said grimly. He looked at the tactical display. Captain, 6 ships. We can probably win, but there will be heavy casualties on their side, maybe thousands dead. Day stared at the screen. He didn't want to kill thousands of aliens even if they were attacking him. There had to be another way. An idea formed in his mind. It was risky, but it might work. Open a channel to Dekvar, Day ordered. When the channel opened, he spoke clearly. Vice Admiral, I have a proposal. Single combat. My ship against yours. If you win, you can do whatever you want. If I win, you and your fleet leave and never threaten humanity again. There was silence for a moment. Then Dekvar laughed. Single combat? You're outnumbered 6-1 and you want to fight only my ship? You're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Dee replied. But those are my terms. You want to prove humans aren't a threat? Beat us fairly. 1-on-1. Dekvar was silent for longer this time. His pride was struggling with his caution. Finally, pride won. Very well. Single combat. My ship, the Crimson Vengeance, against your Dauntless. We'll see how tough you really are. The other 5 Velcrin ships moved back, creating a wide open space. The Crimson Vengeance moved forward. It was enormous, a true dreadnought 3 times the size of the Dauntless. Its hull was dark red like dried blood. Weapons covered every surface, sir, that's not a fair fight, High said quietly. That ship is massive. I never said it was fair, Day replied. I just said single combat. He sat in his command chair and gripped the armrests. Prepare all weapon systems. Full power to forward shields. Let's show them what a human warship can really do. The Crimson Vengeance fired first. A massive energy beam wider than the Dauntless itself shot across space. It was a Nova cannon, a weapon designed to crack planets. The beam hit the human ship square in the center. For a moment, the Dauntless disappeared in a blinding flash of light. The Velcrin crews watching from their distant ships cheered. The Xylan courier ship, still docked with the Dauntless, shook violently. Renis grabbed onto a console to keep from falling. Then the light faded, and the Dauntless emerged, shields flickering but hull completely intact. On the bridge, alarms were beeping, but they were minor warnings. Lieutenant Tay checked his readings and grinned. Shields held at 70%, he reported. Hull damage 0. That was exciting. Captain Day allowed himself a small smile. Our turn. Lieutenant High, fire the EMP cannon. The Dauntless had many weapons the Velcrin had never seen. The EMP cannon was one of them. It fired a focused electromagnetic pulse designed specifically to disable shields. The beam was invisible, but its effect was immediate. The Crimson Vengeance's shields flickered and died completely. Before Dekvar could react, the Dauntless fired a kinetic missile. Not at the ship's bridge or engines, but at its side. The missile was traveling at near light speed. When it hit the unshielded hull, it punched straight through, creating a massive hole. But the missile didn't explode inside. Instead, it kept going, exiting the other side of the ship. The explosion happened in space, away from the Velcrin vessel. It was a shaped charge, designed to push debris away from the ship rather than into it. The Crimson Vengeance shuddered and went dark. Life support remained active, but everything else was offline. It had taken exactly 5 seconds. On the Dauntless bridge, everyone was silent. Then Day spoke into the communication channel, his voice carrying across all frequencies. Vice Admiral Dekvar, your ship is disabled but intact. Your crew is alive. That was our choice. We could have destroyed you completely. We chose mercy, he paused. Now take your ships and go. Tell the Velcrin that humanity doesn't want war, but tell them also that we will end any war that comes to us. Next time we won't be so gentle. The 5 remaining Velcrin ships moved quickly to the Crimson Vengeance, beginning rescue operations. Within an hour they were gone, jumping to FTL with their damaged flagship in tow. Ambassador Rennie stood on the bridge, her eyes wide. That was remarkable. You held back even against 6 ships. We always hold back, Captain Day said quietly, until we don't have to anymore. He turned to her. Ambassador, I think the Xylan Collective and humanity should talk more about that alliance. Rennie smiled. I think so too, Captain. I think so too. The weeks following the battle with Vice Admiral Dekvar were busy ones for Captain Day and his crew. The story of what happened spread even faster than the first encounter. Now everyone in the sector knew 2 things about humans. They were incredibly powerful, and they were surprisingly merciful. The Velcrin Confederation acted quickly to control the damage. Vice Admiral Dekvar was arrested the moment his fleet returned home. He was charged with unauthorized military action and endangering the Confederation. The Council of Admirals made it very clear that his actions did not represent official Velcrin policy. Admiral Corvin himself composed a message to Captain Day. The old admiral appeared on the Dauntless view screen, his gray scales and tired eyes showing his age and wisdom. Captain Day, on behalf of the Velcrin Confederation, I apologize for the actions of Vice Admiral Dekvar. His attack was not authorized by our government. We have punished him appropriately. Captain Day nodded respectfully. Admiral Corvan, I appreciate your message. We understand that Dekvar acted alone. We hold no grudge against your people. You are generous, Corvan said. More generous than we deserve. You had every right to destroy his ship, yet you spared it. You had every right to consider this an act of war, yet you choose to see it as the action of one rogue officer. He paused. The Velcrin Confederation would like to formally request diplomatic relations with humanity. We wish to establish a non-aggression pact and begin cultural exchanges. We would welcome that, Admiral, Day replied. Humanity came to the stars seeking friends, not enemies. We're glad the Velcrin leadership sees the value in peace. The formal agreement was signed 2 weeks later. It was the first treaty between humanity and an alien species. The ceremony took place on a neutral space station with representatives from both sides. Admiral Na traveled from Earth to represent humanity. Admiral Corvan represented the Velcrin. The 2 military leaders shook hands, or at least performed the closest equivalent their different anatomies allowed. Cameras from dozens of species recorded the moment. It was historic. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage. Meanwhile, the alliance with the Xylan Collective was developing well. Ambassador Rennis had returned to her homeworld with glowing reports about humanity. Empress Sultara was pleased. She ordered immediate cooperation on several projects. The first Xylan diplomats arrived on Earth 3 months after first contact. They were amazed by what they found. Earth was indeed a death world by their standards. The gravity was crushing. The microorganisms were aggressive. The weather was violent. Yet humans had not just survived, they had thrived. They had built a global civilization while fighting against their own planet. Now we understand, one Xylan scientist said to her human counterpart. You're not just strong because of your technology. You're strong because you had to be. Your entire history is one of overcoming challenges. The human scientist, Dr. Kim, smiled. Every species faces challenges. We just had more than most. But that's behind us now. We're not fighting our planet anymore. We're exploring beyond it, and we'd like to do that exploration together with friends like the Xylan. The cultural exchange program worked both ways. Humans learned about Xylan medical technology, which was far advanced in treating diseases. The Xylan learned about human engineering, which could build structures to withstand incredible stress. Both species benefited, but the most important development was happening in the political sphere. Smaller species, those who had been dominated by the Velcrin for generations, started reaching out to humanity. They saw an opportunity. If the Velcrin were afraid of humans, maybe humans could protect them. Captain Day found himself hosting delegation after delegation. Species he had never heard of came to his ship, asking for help, for protection, for friendship. It was overwhelming. He sent message after message to Earth Command asking for guidance. Admiral Na's response was thoughtful. Captain, you've done something remarkable out there. You've shown the galaxy that humanity is both strong and fair. Now we have to decide what kind of role we want to play. Do we become protectors? Do we become conquerors? Do we simply remain explorers? She paused, choosing her words carefully. The United Nations has debated this question for weeks. We finally reached a decision. We will help those who ask for help. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. But we will not build an empire. We will not demand loyalty or tribute. We will be friends and allies, not masters. This policy became known as the First Contact Principles. It was simple. Defend the defenseless, never strike first, always offer mercy, and seek allies, not subjects. Every human ship received these principles as standing orders. The Dauntless was given a new assignment. Instead of simple patrol, it would now serve as both guardian and ambassador along the border regions. Captain Day would continue to be humanity's face to the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Sue was promoted to full commander and given a new title, Chief Diplomatic Officer for the Epsilon Sector. She would coordinate all human diplomatic efforts in the region. She was good at her job, patient and intelligent, able to understand alien perspectives while representing human interests. Lieutenant High was given her own ship, the UNS Resolute, a new destroyer built to the same specifications as the Dauntless. She was nervous about the promotion, but Captain Day had confidence in her. You've learned well, he told her. Now go show another part of the galaxy what humanity stands for. Lieutenant Tay became the chief engineer of Harmony Station, humanity's first permanent installation in alien territory. The station would serve as a hub for trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Building it in neutral space sent a message. Humans were here to stay. 1 year after the first encounter with the Velcrin, a summit was called. Representatives from 23 different species gathered at Harmony Station. It was the largest diplomatic gathering in sector history. The purpose was to create a framework for peaceful coexistence among all species. The talks were difficult. Species that had been enemies for centuries had to sit together. Old grudges and new fears clashed constantly, but slowly, painfully, progress was made. The key was that humans refused to take sides in old conflicts. They mediated instead of dominating. Ambassador Rennes played a crucial role. She used her diplomatic skills to bridge gaps between species. She translated not just words but intentions, helping aliens understand each other, and she made sure humanity's voice was heard without being overwhelming. On the final day of the summit, a document was signed. It was called the Galactic Accord. It wasn't a government or an alliance. It was simply an agreement. Species would respect each other's territory, disputes would be resolved peacefully, and unprovoked attacks would be condemned by all signatories. 23 species signed the accord. It wasn't perfect. Several powerful species refused to participate, but it was a start. For the first time in recorded history, multiple species were working together for peace instead of competing for dominance. Captain Day attended the signing ceremony as humanity's military representative. He stood before the assembled aliens and gave a short speech. His words were translated into dozens of languages and broadcast across the sector. 1 year ago, your people scanned our ship. You saw weapons and armor. You saw power and technology. Some of you saw a threat. Others saw an opportunity. But you all missed something important. He paused, looking around at the diverse faces watching him. You missed our hope. Humanity refused to believe that violence was inevitable. We refused to accept that the strong must always dominate the weak. We refused to give up on the idea that different species could be friends instead of enemies. That hope is our greatest weapon. Not our railguns or our armor, but our stubborn insistence on finding better ways. Today we prove that hope was justified. 23 species standing together agreeing to peace. It's not perfect. It won't solve every problem, but it's better than what we had before, and tomorrow we'll make it even better. The chamber erupted in applause, or the alien equivalent. Species that couldn't clap made other sounds of approval. It was a moment of genuine unity, fragile but real. After the ceremony, Admiral Na pulled Captain Day aside. You did well out here, Captain. Earth is proud of you and your crew. Thank you, Admiral, Day replied. But the work isn't finished. The Accord is just a beginning. I know, Na said. That's why we're building more ships. 10 more vessels like the Dauntless. We're calling them the Guardian class, but they'll be different from pure warships. They'll have medical facilities, scientific laboratories, diplomatic quarters. They'll be built for war but designed for peace. Day smiled. That sounds perfect. And Captain, Na continued, I want you to help train their commanders. You understand better than anyone what it means to carry humanity's reputation. We need captains who are strong but wise, powerful but merciful, just like you. Several months later, the first Guardian-class ships launched from Earth. Captain Day stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching them arrive in the sector. 10 beautiful ships, each one a promise that humanity would protect the peace they had helped create. Among the new captains was his former tactical officer, Hai, now Captain Hai of the Resolute. She sent him a message. Thank you for teaching me that the best battles are the ones we never have to fight.